Apparently it's a really lucrative business to be an internet troll. I'm really surprised they don't have benefits or a union. Welcome back to the LeBron James fake flop known as 2021, where we are still misinterpreting the Bible. It seems like the majority of what people say about the Bible is completely taken out of context. And I know that anti-Christians would be like, that sounds like an excuse to me. No, really, let's look at any book. You could take any book. Let's take any book, like the Great Gatsby. You go ahead and just take one line, or you know what? I'll give you a half a paragraph out of there, and just read it as that is your motto, that is your creed, and it will make absolutely no sense because there's no context to go with it. And that's exactly what's wrong with people quoting and misusing, really, the Bible. And that's for Christians and non-Christians. It seems like what people do with the Bible is they go into it and they find a verse that defends their argument, and they will use that to falsely defend whatever they're trying to say, which is completely inaccurate on how the Bible is used. Probably the worst thing about it is the fact that it is simply called a book, and it is not really a book. It's not an anthology. It's not a novel. It is actually a compilation of historical documents, poems, and letters to different churches and different organizations. So, with the Bible, the first thing I will strongly recommend for people to stop doing is stop quoting verses. Use chapters. If you're going to quote something, use a chapter so we get the full picture. You don't know how many slimy dudes use the whole line, the verse, wives are supposed to submit to their husbands? Like millions of them. But if they read the whole thing, there's rules for what the husband is supposed to do for the wife. There's what the husband and the wife is supposed to do for their children, what the children do for them, and vice versa. There's a whole breakdown of the entire, how the family's supposed to help each other out, and how you're supposed to put God first above all of it. But they like to use that one little line to get their sleazy way of convincing their wife to do stuff. So again, stop using verses. If you're going to do something to quote or to make a point, we really need to start using chapters. So when you approach the Bible, it is somewhat in chronological order, especially in the Old Testament. You have to find out what you're exactly reading. Is this a historical document? And if it is, who wrote it and when did they write it, as far as the year, the time, and the location. If it is a poem, you need to find out, again, who the author is and when they wrote it and where they wrote it at. And the poetry part, that's where there is some interpretation, because it is poetical, it's not exact, it is artistic, so there is a little bit of freedom in what is being said. Now then, if it is a letter, you need to find out, again, who wrote the letter, but more importantly, and this is the big one, you need to find out who the letter was written to. Now then, if it's an individual person, or if it is a group of people, or if it is a church, you also need to research that person, that group of people, or that church, historically, who they were and what they were about. For example, the book of Corinthians is probably the best book to relate to us in these times, because the city of Corinth, they had a lot of the same issues that we're dealing with today. But you need to understand what you're reading, who wrote it, and who it was addressed to in order to fully understand the complete story of what you're reading. Instead of just skimming through the index in the back of the study Bible and finding subjects and just reading the subjects, which are just little verses, and putting those together and making your point for an argument. That is not what the Bible is meant for. That is why there's so many study guides out there to help people work their way through the Bible, because again, it's not a novel, it's not a collection of stories. It's a collection of God's words in many different formats.